Hey guys, a couple months ago when I played through the Mod of Redemption on stream, I encountered the most awesome modded structure that I've ever come across in Terraria. Today, I'm going to take you through and share my experiences with it and explain why I hold it in such high regard. Before saying anything else though, I do need to give you a big spoiler warning. This will be a rather thorough breakdown of a large area of the game in the Mod of Redemption, so if you haven't played it yet and want to experience everything for yourself, then, go do that first. With that out of the way, I present to you the abandoned laboratory. Oh, Alright, first things first. This is a hard mode biome in the Mod of Redemption that we're able to explore after defeating all 3 of the mechanical bosses, which I originally found out only after having my face removed by a laser. Once we've gone on a little boss slaying rampage and proven ourselves worthy and graced the entrance of the abandoned lab with our glorious presence once again, we can finally enter. We run into some radioactive slime spawning sludge, and after clearing it away, it's already feeling like Mission Impossible in here, as to get past the laser door that's blocking our way, we have to jump into the vent overhead. Dropping out of the other side of the vent, we end up in another room and meet the first character in the lab, the robot janitor. And already we're getting off to a fun start, because yeah, the first thing we have to do is fight the goddamn janitor. It's kind of a funny fight too, because the janitor bot has an insane amount of guard points to soak up damage with, but is portrayed in a clumsy way, as he can hit himself with his own broom attacks and slip in water from his bucket, stunning himself in both cases. After styling on him and showing him the what for, he gives us a lab access panel that allows us to actually explore the lab. Once we've deactivated the laser doors and descended into the lab, we commit Among Us once more and find ourselves in just the type of area one would expect in an abandoned building. Broken down doors, vacant tables, and green goo covering literally everything, including the enemies. It can be seen fairly quickly that the lab appears to be designed in a very specific way, with a strange material blocking our way down and a door right by the entrance that needs a key card to be unlocked. This layout is the same in every world, as this structure always spawns in the exact same way. This is the case because the encounters and items of various types that you find in it are meant to be found in a certain order according to its design and the progression of the game, which, well, I'll get to that. There's a bunch of radiation pills laying around in cabinets and on tables as we walk into the first rooms. Upon reading the description of these items, we learn that they are used for curing radiation poisoning, which isn't foreboding in the slightest. We say hi to the toaster on one of the tables, which has a text box for some reason, and then crawl into another vent, which is hiding a security locker with some cool loot and a box that is locked behind that blasted key card again. The lab opens up a little further in, and we find a crystal-like material on the ground and ceiling that is called xenomite. This material is lore-related and also is used to make a lot of gear and upgrades into a higher-tier crafting resource later in the game. We also find this thing, crystallized corpse. Nice! There's more keycard doors in this room blocking our progression, and going where we're actually allowed to, we find some awesome items like a new dash, a big lightning turret, and an awesome looking hammer weapon. There's already been some interesting stuff, and the sort of sci-fi horror vibe that this biome has is really cool so far. But the first thing that really made me appreciate the design of the abandoned lab was this next room that comes up after our looting spree, which is a long vertical chasm that has been ruined and overrun by sludge. It's pretty empty aside from the slime, but once we make our way down towards the bottom of this room, the camera suddenly shifts upward, and the irradiated behemoth drags itself down from the ceiling. This mini-boss spans the length of the room and pulls itself down towards us with its bubbly infected hand, alternating between a tile-piercing gas attack and a wave of projectiles that it fires at the player. It's a pretty simple encounter, as there's nothing else to it really, but despite this simplicity, the novelty of the battle is striking to me. It felt really unique. It's a completely self-contained, vertical, wall of flesh-like fight that's just slapped in the middle of a huge dungeon. That's basically all that it is, but where else in Terraria do you see this sort of thing? Nowhere. At least I don't know where, and if you do, then tell me, because I want more. I thought that this fight was awesome. The irradiated behemoth drops another lab access panel when killed, and also initiates a conversation with a mysterious entity, who gifts us an Omega transmitter via drone, which is an important boss summoning item for use outside of the lab. Using the access panel, we can check out some rooms to the right with some interesting machinery and another locked crate, avoiding the radioactive pool underfoot, unless you're me the first time exploring this area and just go into the pool instead, checking out the remains of a nuclear meltdown before jumping into the room from below. We also have access to the room where the janitor now resides, and we can talk to him after getting over some radiation-induced blindness. He's a bit of a grump, but has a shop where you can buy a bunch of laboratory aesthetics, as well as the Omega transmitter if you lose it, and an item that lets you resummon the abandoned lab mini-bosses. Now, at this point, we can't actually continue into the lab, even though there's a lot more to find. First, we need to beat Moonlord, at which point the player is again contacted by the unknown entity. I won't explain who this character speaking to us is because they're part of the wide lore surrounding the lab that I don't have time to get into, but upon giving us permission to access the lower sections of the lab, another very convenient drone comes over and delivers a keycard to us, which, if you'll remember, is what we need to unlock the other crates and doors in the lab. Because we're a bunch of greedy loot goblins, once we go back into the lab, we go straight for the crates first, getting a big spinny saw and a crossbow that shoots depleted uranium rods. Because what could possibly go wrong with that? To actually progress deeper into the lab, we now need to go into the irradiated water pond and through a keycard door. Descending, we have a labyrinth of what I assumed were nuclear fuel rods to our right and a stash of loot to our left, because why not? There's always time for more loot. There's two of these standard post-Moonlord crates we've been opening here, and then a black one that needs another keycard to access it. We have to navigate the presumed nuclear rods, which kill you almost instantly if you touch them, which I guess isn't surprising. Once we've made our way past them, we can go down the water-filled vents, grab some more loot, and then venture into a larger room, which houses the first post-Moonlord mini-boss. This one is called Blisterface, a big ugly fish which emerges from its pond after you enter the chamber, attacking you with toxic bubbles and smaller minion fish. Like the irradiated behemoth, it's a relatively simple fight with just a couple of attacks, but again struck me in a special way with how the environment was used in the creation of this encounter, which I think I described best on stream after beating it. By the way, fantastic job. If you're here with these mini bosses, they like in this laboratory, the mini bosses are like super well done, as in like how you've placed them in this area, how you've like formatted them to like use this like what was this, like vertical space, use this like pool of water in this small room. Like, so cool, dude. Blisterface drops another lab access panel on defeat, along with the special keycard that we needed, conveniently. Opening the black crate rewards us with the nano pickaxe, which lets us mine the black sludge that's mucking up the abandoned lab. This gives us access to a side area with some more crates, a little room with the xenium smelter in it, which you need in order to make some of the late game hard mode items, and Protector Volt, our next mini-boss. Protector Volt has this huge room all to himself. Like with the other mini-bosses, the design of the room is used in the fight, the big hovering platforms being needed to avoid a huge laser that he fires. Heavily armed though he may be, his evasive maneuvers won't save him from my plutonium railgun, and in beating him we get another access panel to unlock more of the lab with. I'm sure you can see the pattern here with beating mini-bosses and unlocking more of the lab each time you do so. Diving deeper into the decrepit hallways, we come to a room where we need to parkour through some electricity, which thankfully is not quite as dangerous as the nuclear rods from before. You can run straight through it actually, and it's no big deal at all. Coming to a winding staircase and running down it, we're greeted once again with another big room. The very ominous mace project looms in the center of the room, and activates when you get close to it, immediately firing a laser and releasing a ring of fireballs. The maze project has its own little gimmick where it is attached to the ceiling and moves mostly from side to side, having attacks that work along with this movement to cover more ground. This fight is quite a bit more complex than the other mini-bosses in the lab and is significantly more difficult. However, perseverance is rewarded and we obtain yet another lab access panel once the metal behemoth is defeated. Even before using it to unlock the final door in front of us, we can already see some foreboding looking dark tendrils in the next room down. This is certainly the most suspenseful moment in the exploration of this structure, as up to this point, Sector 0 has been mentioned a couple of times as something of a restricted zone of the lab. It's where all of the black sludge that is blocking everything up is coming from, so, clearly there's something weird in there. It's pretty mysterious as well, as you're never really told anything about what is in the room that makes up Sector 0, and as you can see, when you get to this area before fighting the maze project, it's almost completely hidden by shadows. So what horrors lay behind this final laser door? Well, this thing. To me, more than anything else found thus far, this is the most harrowing depiction of scientific experimentation gone wrong in the mod. This absolute monstrosity is called Patient Zero, and it's about as fitting an encounter as possible for the climax of our journey because, I mean, look at it. Unlike the mini-bosses in the laboratory, which activate when you enter their rooms, Patient Zero just hangs in the middle of its chamber, suspended by goop, apparently just taking a nap. To engage the beast, you just have to attack it, at which point the boss remains dormant for a few moments before suddenly waking up and firing a huge laser beam in 4 directions. As a note, I will mention that Carrie Johansson is a character who is mentioned in multiple bits of laboratory lore and isn't just a random name thrown in here for no reason. Carrie was the Patient Zero, the first unfortunate receiver of the xenomite infection that is attributed to the destruction of the lab. If you'll remember, xenomite is one of the materials that is found in multiple places in the lab and is said to carry an infection of some kind. Through experimentation with xenomite at this facility is how we got these. And this. In the actual fight that takes place here, Carrie Johansson and Patient Zero are treated as 2 separate entities during the battle as the boss swaps phases. Patient Zero is the eyeball that fires giant lasers and green fireballs, xenium blasts, and at multiple stages of the fight, the eye will close and Carrie Johansson's actual body at the base of the amalgamation is revealed and becomes vulnerable, launching its own series of attacks at the player. This is a fairly well-structured boss fight. Patient Zero cuts off large parts of the room and forces the player to move with the lasers while firing smaller projectiles in fixed directions, creating a very contained bullet hell. Carrie mixes it up a bit and directly attacks the player with green blobs and lasers and uses arcing, vertical, shotgun-like attacks. These attack styles alternate with slightly differing patterns and actual attacks as the boss gets lower on health, until finally it's Carrie attacking us in the final stretch until we deplete him of HP with the power of plutonium, and Patient Zero poofs into nothingness. That's mostly it for the abandoned lab. At this point, all of the encounters have been cleared and all of the rooms explored, except for this extra chest near the final boss arena containing all of its drops that you can unlock after beating it. There are a couple of other small things that you don't need to have beaten Patient Zero in order to get to, but that I didn't find until afterwards, like the now recolored toaster that talks and bounces around angrily, which I'll let you find out more about yourself, and this glowing spot in one of the rooms that when interacted with shows an image of a shattered photograph on the floor, which I just found to be a really cool final piece of visual storytelling. If you want to find out more about the story of the lab, the robots, and the bosses, then I highly suggest taking a crack at the mod yourself. There's a lot more to this place than just what I covered. We're gonna wrap it up here though. I hope you enjoyed the video. I don't do broad overview videos like this very often, so I would appreciate feedback in the comments to see what you all thought so I can improve content like this in the future. And with that, I'm out of here. I will see you in the next one.